What if you woke up in the year 802,701? The world you know is gone, and in its place is a quiet, overgrown garden. You soon discover that humanity has split into two different species. One lives a life of blissful ignorance on the surface, while the other, a monstrous echo of a forgotten working class, lurks in the darkness below. This isn't just some sci fi nightmare. It was H.G. Wells' chilling prophecy about where the class divisions of his own time were heading. And the scariest part? His warning feels as relevant today. The story doesn't kick off in the distant future, but in the smoky comfort of a late Victorian dining room in England. An ambitious scientist who we only know as the Time Traveler is holding court with his skeptical friends. A doctor, a psychologist, an editor. He's trying to convince them that time is just a fourth dimension, one that can be navigated just like length, breadth, and thickness. To prove his point, he pulls out a small, glittering model of his invention. Right before their astonished eyes, the tiny machine shimmers and vanishes into thin air. A week later, the guests are back for dinner, but their host is nowhere to be found. Suddenly, the time traveler stumbles into the room, clothes torn, face pale, and utterly exhausted. After pulling himself together, he begins to tell a tale so wild it borders on madness. He tells them that he finished his full size time machine and launched himself headfirst into the future. He describes the dizzying blur of time speeding up, of watching his own house fade away as the world outside transforms. He finally stops the machine in the year 802,701 AD and steps out into what at first glance looks like a perfect utopia. In this distant future, the time traveler finds that humanity has evolved into the Eloi. They're beautiful, graceful creatures, but small, frail, and possessing a kind of childlike innocence. They live in huge, decaying buildings, spending their days playing, eating fruit, and living a life totally free from hardship. They're peaceful, gentle, and have almost no curiosity or intellect. They are, as the traveler comes to believe, an aristocracy in decay. At first, he's charmed by their simple, carefree lives. It seems like humanity has finally solved all their problems. But a strange feeling starts to creep in. The Eloi are beautiful, sure, but they're also lazy and shockingly unintelligent. They've lost the strength that comes from struggle. When one of them, Weena, a young woman who falls into a river, the others just watch. It's the time traveler who has to save her. In return, she develops a deep puppy like affection for him and follows him everywhere. But this perfect world shatters when the time traveler returns to where he landed and finds his time machine is gone. He figures out it's been dragged into the hollow base of a large sphinx like statue. His paradise has just become a prison. And he's about to find out what the Eloi are so afraid of when the moonless nights draw in. As dusk falls, the time traveler starts seeing pale ape like figures moving in the shadows. These are the Morlocks, the second species of future humanity. They're grotesque creatures who live in a vast, dark underground world, their big eyes unaccustomed to light after thousands of years in tunnels. The strange wells dotting the landscape are actually air shafts and entrances to their domain. Mustering his courage, the time traveler climbs down one of the wells and makes a horrifying discovery. The Morlocks aren't just hiding, they are the industrial laborers of this new world. He finds them among vast, humming machines and forms a chilling theory. This is the dark engine running the Eloy's paradise. But this isn't some balanced relationship, it's a food chain. The Morlocks, brutalized by generations of labor, have become the predators, and the helpless Eloi are their cattle. They hunt the Eloi at night, dragging them underground to be eaten. The Eloi's paradise is just a free range farm. From here on, it's a desperate fight for survival. He knows he has to get his time machine back from the Morlocks. He and Weena flee to a ruined museum, a palace of green porcelain, where he finds matches and a metal lever to use as a weapon. But during a brutal fight with a swarm of Morlocks in a forest, he accidentally starts a fire. In the chaos, Weena is lost and presumed killed. A heartbroken time traveler barely escapes with his life. He makes it back to the Sphinx to find the Morlocks have opened the pedestal using his machine as bait. He seizes the opportunity, fights his way past them, and launches himself back into the fourth dimension. The Time Machine is so much more than a sci fi adventure. It's H.G. Wells putting the Victorian England of his own time on blast. As a committed socialist, Wells wrote this story as a warning about the dangers of unchecked capitalism and the rigid class system of the Industrial Revolution. The Eloi and the Morlocks aren't just some evolutionary accident. Wells presents them as the logical conclusion of a society split between a decadent, idle upper class and an oppressed, dehumanized working class. The Eloi are his vision of the bourgeoisie, the wealthy elite, who have become so coddled by luxury that they've physically and mentally decayed. Their comfort, bought by the labor of others, has made them weak, incurious, and totally helpless. They're a symbol of an aristocracy that has lost its strength because it no longer has any challenges to overcome. On the other hand, the Morlocks represent the proletariat, the working class. In Wells' future, they've been literally forced underground to toil in darkness for the benefit of the surface dwellers. Generations of this brutal existence have turned them into something monstrous, driven only by primal needs. The final horrific twist, where the descendants of the workers now hunt and eat the descendants of the elite, is Wells' ultimate warning. He's suggesting that the class conflict of his era, if ignored, wouldn't just simmer forever. It would evolve into a literal biological struggle for survival. This novel was his attempt to show the powerful elites of his time the monstrous future their society was building. Before 1895, the idea of traveling through time was mostly fantasy. After H.G. Wells, it became a genre. The Time Machine is credited with popularizing the concept of time travel using a mechanical device, and Wells even coined the term time machine itself. This one novella laid the groundwork for one of the biggest subgenres in science fiction. Its influence is almost impossible to measure. Every story that involves someone hopping into a vehicle to journey through the fourth dimension owes a debt to Wells' work. Franchises like Doctor Who with its iconic TARDIS, and movies like Back to the Future with its DeLorean are direct descendants of the time traveler's strange brass and crystal contraption. Wells created the tropes: the machine as a vessel, the dizzying journey, and the explorer who witnesses humanity's fate. But it's more than just the mechanics. Wells showed what science fiction could really do. He mixed thrilling adventure with deep social commentary, proving that sci fi wasn't just about cool gadgets. It was a powerful mirror to hold up to society, reflecting our possible futures, both the bright and the terrifying. This idea of using the future to critique the present became a hallmark of the genre, inspiring countless writers and filmmakers to tackle complex themes of justice, technology, and what it means to be human. The split between the Eloi and the Morlocks is one of the most powerful metaphors in literature. But where do you see echoes of this division in our world today? Is Wells's warning still on the money? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if there are other classic novels you'd like to see broken down like this, please share your suggestions. After escaping the Morlocks, the time traveler doesn't go straight home. Instead, he pushes his machine even further, jumping thousands, then millions of years into the future. He watches in horror as the sun swells into a blood-red giant and the Earth slowly dies. He makes a final stop some 30 million years from his own time, on a desolate beach under that dying sun. The only signs of life are grotesque tentacled creatures flopping in a dark sea. It's a haunting vision of the end of everything humanity ever built. He finally returns to his own time and to his disbelieving friends with only a pair of strange white flowers, a gift from Weena as proof of his journey. But he can't stay. 3 years pass, and the narrator tells us that the time traveler got back in his machine for a second journey and was never seen again. His ultimate fate is a mystery. Did he go back to try to save Weena and rebuild civilization? Or did he just simply get lost in the currents of time? We're left with that question and the chilling story he told. The Time Machine forces us to look at not only our society, but also our own tiny place in the vast, indifferent timeline of the universe. It leaves us with one last unsettling question. If we could see our own future, Would we be proud of what we'd become?